So Raptors missing a couple of players last night. They pull out this gutsy effort. I'm not surprised that they're far more interesting. I knew that they would be as soon as the trade happened. I knew that they were going to have more shooting with Quickley. He was going to represent someone that could shoot off the bounce, shoot a pull-up, and it's something that, frankly, they didn't have anymore. Raptors just didn't have a guy who could create off the bounce behind the perimeter. That was going to be great. I knew that RJ Barrett was going to come here and work his ass off on both ends of the floor. Everybody here that follows basketball is familiar enough with RJ Barrett's game that they knew exactly what he was going to provide, and he's done extremely well. But are you surprised at all at how fun it's been? Like, what's your read on that? Because I'm enjoying it, and I can't tell how much of it is just, oh, right, we watched such bad basketball for such a long time. God, for a lack of a better word, the kids say the vibes were so bad with that basketball team that just something fresh is making this great. What I'm saying is we're in the honeymoon period with this team, clearly, right? But how much of it do you think is actually, oh, crap, this basketball team might eventually be good despite being 8 games below 500 and starting so far behind the 8 ball, versus how much of it is, oh God, we're just so grateful to be watching something different than what we had been seeing for the last couple of seasons?
So I think it's more the first part of that, which is you can actually, I'm not willing to declare them they're good again already, but I think what is clear, and this plays into the vibes and how enjoyable they are to watch, but the path to them being good is now a lot more clear. And you know how I feel about OG, but adding 2 offensive pieces to a team that was so starved for offense, it really is like getting an oxygen mask on after watching this team slog through the half-court offense for 35 games. You've got to have 2 of Pascal, Scotty, and Dennis Schroeder on the floor at all times. Otherwise, no lineup can create or dribble enough or get a shot off. To now you've got those 3 and RJ and Quickley, and you usually have 3 of them on the floor. So you went from we're desperate to have 2 to, even if you mess up the rotations, you probably got 3 of them out there. Like, how much easier it is for this offense to breathe is huge. We didn't see this last night because Pascal didn't play, but you see in some of these games that, like, hey, yeah, Pascal and Scotty have been playing through a ton of double teams and traps and things like that, and nobody could take advantage of it before. And now RJ and Immanuel Quickley are very well suited to, RJ's had a ton of buckets where ball swings to the second side, and he immediately, like, before the ball's in his hands, he's taken off against the slow closeout or a late rotation or something like that, or Quickley goes right into a pick and roll with someone on the other side. And, all these principles they tried to install about the high post play, the DHOs, the swinging side to side, no, they weren't. First of all, they weren't particularly good at creating the initial advantage, but they had no one to take advantage of that little advantage you created. And now you have more pieces on the floor that can kind of flow through that offense and take advantage of what Scotty and Pascal are creating initially. So I think a lot of it is just like, really bad offensive basketball is hard to watch, and they've been a really bad half-court offensive team for a couple years now. So I think that's a big component of it. But also, like, you see, as far as them being better, like, yes, they've absolutely played better, but more importantly, you see a path to them being even better now in a way that, again, I love OG, but the half-court offense was not going to get better with the pieces that they had there. The defense had fallen despite OG's individual defense. Like, there is just a more clear path now. Not, in addition to, they got younger as well by turning OG into 2 guys who are a couple years younger than him. So, yeah, they're better, but I think this is much, like, I think the energy and, like, how much people are enjoying it is much more about, like, yeah, you can see what they're trying to do and where it could go now.
Dude, OG Anunoby, I think, is plus 111.
Infinity.
That's off the top of my head. I think it's plus 111 with the New York Knicks. Have they lost yet?
No.
They haven't lost. If you had to say who is the most popular Raptor before the OG trade, would you say it would have gone, like, if we were polling every single Raptor fan, it probably would have gone still Scotty 1, right?
I think so.
But OG would have been 2 ahead of Siakam.
I mean, that one might depend on the person. Just because OG not playing in the championship run, I think probably cost him some. He's my number 1. But I think he's in every single Raptor fan's top 3 is the thing that won't be true for other people.
But not just that, too, is Siakam has had moments, and not to get too far down this rabbit hole, but Siakam's had some controversial moments, right? Like, he's been benched by the Raptors before. He's had horrible late-game closing stats. He's been bad in the clutch. He had a season where he was the guy, and then he couldn't finish at all, and that made him polarizing amongst the fan base, right? It actually reminds me a little bit of DeRozan, where everybody loved DeMar DeRozan, but when he left here, he became almost like a Christ-like figure where people went, we had to sacrifice him for the greater good. Everyone loved DeMar. I went to basketball games. I would go to Raptors games as a fan. I can't remember ever sitting in the stands and not hearing people go, oh, DeMar, when he would go cold from the floor. Immediately, he would spark angry discussions. I feel as though Siakam is that, whereas OG benefits from being a little quieter, benefits from not having the pressure of being the top scorer on the team, being a defensive ace, which is something harder.
There's also the element, too, of like with Pascal and Scotty right now, part of the conversation is the timeline, right?
Sure.
Where like they're 7 years apart, whereas OG, fits, right? Like he was 26, he knocks down threes, like OG fits anywhere. So there's no one that can be like, well, OG doesn't fit the Scotty system if they wanted to go that route.
The point I'm trying to illustrate here is simply that
he's extremely popular and no one is really upset about it.
Not a single person could be.
Yeah.
I can't imagine right now moping about OG and Anunoby. Imagine being someone who DM'd you the OG stat going, ooh, I knew this was going to be bad. You can't do it.
No, it gets tweeted at me, but it's entirely from a win-win perspective of like, oh, so happy for OG. And like, it's going to continue because the Knicks are going to be annoying in the playoffs. They're going to be tougher to knock out. So we're going to get to see playoff OG.
It's early days, but I think that this really does knock down a couple things for me. I'm sorry, but offense in the NBA, especially this era, is way more important than defense. And two is, it's a sport where chemistry will always matter so much, okay?
And just fit.
Yeah. Chemistry, team chemistry and fit over purely, hey, this guy in a box is supposed to be one of the best defenders in the NBA. I'm sorry. We're seeing that now. And the stats back it up. And some of these go back before OG left. The Raptors had been trending in the right direction before this even happened. It was just a little quieter because people, one was Siakam's shooting regression went from I'm the worst shooter in the NBA to I'm really, really good all of a sudden. So a lot of it has to do with that. He's your main usage percentage player. So that's going to be a lot of it. But you're my stats guy, right? But I think my favorite stats Twitter cat, because you do more than just stats, right?
Also, I don't. Yeah,
it's okay.
I'm a stats guy. I'm not just a stats guy.
Well, I don't know if she's just a stats.
She's not
girl, but Kirthika Utha Kumar.
Yeah, Keeks, as everyone calls her.
I don't know her, so I can't do Keeks.
You can't drop a.
I got to do full name every time. It's like pods. It's the same thing. I can't do pods. Maybe she will be friends, and I hope so. She tweeted yesterday a couple bangers. One, the Raptors have scored at least 115 points in 10 straight games, longest in franchise history. Wow. Could you imagine saying that to someone? Again, context matters here where we've got, 7 of the 10 best offenses in NBA history?
Yeah, so the Pacers have scored 150 points like once a week.
I'm a sports bettor. I still laugh. It's a little giggly treat for me every single time I go to look at NBA totals in Pacers games, and the total is set at 264
How
points.
many times have we seen the headline this year? Like Pacers set new all-time record for over-under.
Yeah, exactly. But she also tweeted, Raptors have only been down by 10 or more twice in their last 6 games, which is incredible considering that was one of the Raptors' staple moves, was to go down by more than double digits, often at the very beginning of basketball games.
And that's one that I had been tracking, and I tweeted out a bunch of times, and I had our pals at Sports Radar pull the data for us at one point because it was just like so extreme. And the Raptors it was something like 75% of their games they'd gotten down double digits, and most of those had happened in the first half. Mm-hmm. So for them I know that this seems like really lowering the bar to be like, well, they're not falling down by 10 anymore, but it does tell you that they're a lot more competitive, like night to night. Like even these last couple games, like the Clippers and Lakers losses and the Kings loss were losses, but they weren't the like, we're down 25 and we're going to fake comeback. And it was like, no, we hung around. We didn't pull it out. And I think that is a better brand of loss and means you're closer to winning than, when they put Amir Coffey in the game as the lead shot creator because Kawhi and Paul George were sitting down, we went on a run kind of thing.
So 2 more Kirthika stats, okay?
Keep them coming.
2 more. This one I think is a little overrated because, again, it's a sample size thing and it's just, it is what, but the Raptors are 3rd in the NBA in offensive rating over the last 10 games. Okay. Again, you have to remember where we were at.
Yep.
Where we were watching rock fights. Do you guys remember the Miami Heat game we were watching earlier this year?
At the 20 game mark, roughly the 20 game mark, we did like a 20 game check in on the Raptors show with Alex and Will. And at that point, the Raptors half court offense, The last time a team had scored that poorly in the half court was the process 76ers. And now they're like downright respectable in the half court.
This is my favorite one. Longest streaks of 25
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
or more assists in the last 30 seasons. This is the best one. This one makes, I like the Grinch. My heart is growing multiple sizes. Call a doctor. Longest streaks of 25 or more assists in the last 30 seasons. Warriors in 2018-19, 26 games. Warriors in 2016-17, 22 games. Warriors in 22-23, 21 games. Again, this is a historically great ball movement team. And then the Raptors this season at 21 games. Incredible. This is what I'm saying about the team chemistry. This is where, okay, I think we've been pretty critical of Darko Rajaković.
Yeah,
right?
This is where I wanted to go with this one.
Everyone has been, man, Darko, I don't know. I would say if I had to release all my group chat thoughts about Darko Rajaković, people wouldn't be pleased. People would be pretty upset. And I said yesterday was kind of his moment where he broke through to Raptors fans, but it was him relating to the insecurities of the fan base, which is everybody's against us. We're alone. We're the only Canadian franchise. Everybody's, no one is rooting for us. The refs are against us. The media is against us.
Could somebody please vote for Scotty?
Exactly. Scotty's the face of him. He nailed the Raptors fan book. What do you call it in wrestling? Cheap pop. It's cheap pop almost.
Cheap heat,
right?
yeah.
Cheap heat. That's what that was. But the ball movement thing, and now adding guys like RJ Barrett who love to move the ball quickly, who loves to move the ball, a guy who just sees the floor. Both of them in transition too. The Raptors are already a good transition team, but both of these guys, their playmaking in transition is gorgeous.
They'd gotten back up to second in transition offense before the trade. And like last night, they pushed well in transition last night. They really didn't finish well. They missed Pascal in transition a lot. But man, you're right. Like RJ is one of the best transition attackers in the league.
He had one against the Lakers that I will...
Austin Reeves. So this is what I was going to say. Yeah. His laser focus on as soon as a defensive rebound comes down or a turnover gets made, he finds the worst defensive player on the other team and is next to him in an instant. You do not have a choice but to put your worst defender on RJ Barrett in transition because he'll find him. It's really fun.
I think that these guys now, having the youth movement of these players, the type of players that they targeted in this trade, who are just perfect, right? Like this is the thing.
Quickley so much.
I know, but the thing that Masai really nailed about this trade, what makes it such a perfect fit for the Raptors, is even though Quickley is going to get paid a ton of money, right? I talked about it with Jake Fisher yesterday.
What do you guess, about $25 million a year?
Yeah, and it might end up being a little over that because these were Knicks estimates. To put it into context, the Knicks wanted to pay him $7 less million per season than Quickley wanted. And again, this was a different fit, right? This isn't, the Raptors took on somebody that, no, their salary structure, the way they looked at it was, you're kind of our six-man backup point guard. We can't afford to pay you this, given where we want to be able to go and the salaries we need to keep open, looking for a co-pilot for Jalen Brunson. Because that's the Knicks' goal, is they're trying to make themselves available if Joel Embiid becomes someone who wants
Donovan
out.
Mitchell.
Right? Yeah, I think that would be a mistake for them, but either way.
We've heard it a bunch of times.
That's the point that they're trying to make. This isn't about Immanuel Quickley. This was never about that. It was just purely fit in the fact that he was going to be blocked and buried and all that different stuff. Kind of in a way similar to the OG thing where you would have loved to try to give him more opportunity, but you just couldn't do it. The Raptors went and got a guy who has clearly the demeanor of wanting to prove that he belongs as a starting point guard in the NBA.
Dude, it was the first thing he said to us on New Year's Day. So we had that god-awful early shoot around on New Year's Day. And the first thing Quickley said was yeah, I want to show I can pass more. New York used me as a scoring guard. I've got more creativity. I've got more ability to make my teammates better. And he was always a guy who you looked at the turnover numbers and you were like, he never turns the ball over. He's obviously got more passing than that's usually a good indicator for a guard that you can expand your passing. And he just does not turn he's over a 6-to-1 assist to turnover since he got here.
What else is great about him is that this market is so used to undersized point guards that he doesn't even look small to me.
No, he's 6'2", 6'3".
Because they keep going. He's so small. He's so small. We're used to Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry.
And even Dennis is undersized.
It's true, but it's so funny because it gets brought up every single time with Quickley. They go, well, he's really small, and the Knicks didn't want to have this tiny backcourt, and I'm going, he's a giant compared to what the Raptors fans are used to. I don't even view him as small at all. A guy who gets to the free throw line, a guy who can hit those threes that I'm talking about off the dribble. You go under a screen, he can pull up on you. He can anyway. A guy who is completely bought in. When he first came here, I was worried because he was such a Nick. He was such a man, this guy loves MSG. He loves New York. He loves those fans. I wonder if he's going to be sour about coming to a Raptors team that really doesn't have a rudder right now, and where he's not going to have the chance to be an alpha because it's going to be Scotty Barnes, and maybe Scotty Barnes is holding. All these guys, all of a sudden, those three, there's zero feeling of me like, oh, Barnes isn't getting enough right now, or oh, RJ's not getting enough right now, or Quickley's not going to have enough. I love the way these three players mesh together, but I love the attitudes that they all approach this with. Like, RJ really wants to be a star in Canada, but he's an unselfish player.
You had a point on New Year's Day out of that press conference that I'm talking about where RJ said something, I can't remember the exact quote, but you quote retweeted and you were like, I think that an underrated part of this is like the cultural element of bringing RJ, who really wants to be here, puts on for Canada, and is like legendarily hard worker. Yeah. And him and Quickley are also like best buds.
See, I didn't know that part of the dynamic, though, until you started watching them on the floor together, and you go, wow, these two players, they play off of each other so well.
Yeah, because like they would, not only are they really good friends off the court after spending 4 years together, like Quickley said, like first day, RJ was like his guy when Quickley got drafted.
That's the thing about RJ, is that he is that guy.
Yeah. And then the other thing is on court, the Knicks rotation pattern, not just this year, but last year as well, was RJ's the first guy off, and then he comes back in with those Quickley bench units. So they have played a ton of basketball together, even though RJ started and Quickley came off the bench.
Anyway, this is just getting into gushy territory where all we're really doing is gushing about how much we love it. But I think that's fine because that's how a lot of people
look,
are feeling.
If RJ's going to shoot 54% on threes forever, I'll gush about him every day. I don't care.
Also, I have been killing this team for 2 years.
Yeah.
This is so refreshing to me. Part of the reason why I wasn't doing as much Raptors talk is because I said, what else do you want me to say? I've been saying for 2 years they need to break this team up and that this could not continue. And I hated the offseason. I hated last year's trade deadline. I hated watching so many of these Raptors games. For the first time since, God, I started working here, I think, I was turning Raptors games off before they were finished, saying, I really don't need to watch this anymore. I'm not learning anything from this. I don't need to watch them play the Charlotte Hornets backups and end up coming back and beating them. And try to say, oh, well, you know what? Maybe if you squint, this thing can actually work out. No.
Look at what they did to JT Thor defensively.
So let me have my gush show, but I also have one negative thing to say.
Sorry, I have one more thing on the assist streak that Keeks tweeted about. So I do think, with respect to Darko, earlier in the year, like, look, the new offensive system, the new principles were not leading to good offense. They were near the league lead in passes. They were near the league lead in assists, but their offense was really poor. Mm-hmm. And I thought Alex Wong was going to lose his mind at one point about potential assists. Like, did you get the assist? No. Oh, then it doesn't count. Yeah. But you see now, process-wise, why, and I understood this intellectually at the time. It was just really hard to watch, of like building those habits and building that system with the idea of, eventually you'll have better offensive players. And there's, this is related to the Darko quote about like, well, what do you want me to do? Steph Curry, we don't have Steph Curry on the bench to start. Like, his hands were tied a little bit. And I don't mean this to say Darko's now coach of the year or anything, but since this trade, certainly attitude wise with the ref stuff, but even tactically, rotation wise, tweak and adjustment wise, we're seeing that Darko is able to do more than he was when, like, Malachi Flynn was his seventh man.
So I think he deserves a ton of credit for this recent stretch. I've become way more interested in Darko as a head coach. I'm glad you closed the loop on that. Last night, when they played Kawhi, do you know Kawhi's 7-0 against the Refs?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. Tough stats since he left. He's since you've been gone, 7-0. That's just a...
And it's not a 7-0.
Armin's looking at me.
I was just going to say, okay, he has some regular season wins. Good for him. Haven't seen him pass the second round.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. Okay, to that point, though, I do think that this is the scariest Kawhi team, which is shocking because I thought when they made the Harden trade, I had Sirit on, and she was actually pro this trade. She thought this trade was good. She went, people are kind of hating on this because they hate on Harden, and I was outright mocking her, going, I'll call you in a few weeks and we'll talk about this. And at first, it was horrific, right? They couldn't get a win. I think they started 0-6. It was bad. Now they're spooky, man. They're a really good basketball team.
They have so much shooting.
They're deep. They're balanced. Kawhi looks like my theory about Kawhi is, God, we're doing a lot of tangent stuff in this one. My theory about Kawhi is that he just, like, from that Raptors 2019 run, he was never right, and he was doing the load management thing, and now he finally load managed his way into another Kawhi is all right season. and then the Clippers are going to go in the playoffs, and something's going to happen to him, but he's going to dog it through the playoffs the same way that he did with the Raptors. I think it's Armin and I were talking about this last night over text. I think that the West, we're doing this whole thing like, oh, there's so much parity, and could Oklahoma City come? It's like Oklahoma City is too young. They're not going to go to the NBA Finals this year. I'm sorry. Shea had the quote about see you at the NBA Finals. I love Shea. I want to see him get to an NBA Finals. I'm torn because it is with the Thunder, but.
And you want your stars to have that attitude.
I know, but it ain't happening this year. Like, they're too inexperienced. There's no move that they're going to make that's going to make this thing work. And I said, LeBron didn't win until he was 27. People need to remember stuff like that when it comes to perspective.
They have something like 44 career playoff games on the team, and half of them are Davis Bertans and Isaiah Joe.
Ain't happening. There's 2 teams in the West that are going to win this year.
Denver and the Clippers.
And the Clippers. That's it. That's the end of the list. We don't need to go any further with this. Minnesota is going to be one of the tougher outs. I could see Minnesota upsetting one of those 2 teams. I don't think Minnesota is going to make it to the finals. Anyway, that's a January take, but I really do believe Kawhi is locked in. But the point I was trying to make here with all those side tangents is last night was the first time that I watched Kawhi and I didn't feel like, oh my God, I miss you so much. What would have happened if we would have? Because the Raptors finally have a direction. When you finally have a direction and you finally have something that you believe in for your team, you can move on. This is it. It's the best way to get over somebody is to get under somebody.
It's every rom-com ever. You run into your ex with their new fiance or whatever, and you have to grab some person to pretend they're your fiance.
I was happy for him. I said, Kawhi, good for you with your team. I won't be rooting for you in the Denver series. I'll be rooting for Jamal Murray. I'll be rooting for Nikola Jokic. But it's okay because I'm so enamored by RJ Barrett and Quickley. And I like Scotty Barnes so much more since this trade, too. I got to say, like, Scotty Barnes looks like, hey, he knows that this is his team now, which leads me to the next thing.
Raptors didn't have Pascal Siakam last night. If they had him, they probably would have beat the Clippers. I think they did. Which is, again, one of the best teams in the NBA. Somebody that's at a finals team. I was also trolling Armin yesterday saying
the Lakers with LeBron James and Anthony Davis and a team that really believes that they are title contenders. I have no doubt in my mind that if the Raptors played them full strength in a 7-game series, they would whoop that ass.
Who's the ref, though?
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. If it's Armin and Ben Taylor, it's the same thing.
By the way, for off-air, you'll never believe who I was texting about Ben Taylor after that game.
Oh, I'm curious. I can't wait. Why don't say that? We just came out of a break. We had ample time to do this. Yeah. Anyway, I'm watching the game last night, and there were moments where I really did miss Pascal, right? I would have loved to see him on the floor. I would have liked to see the Raptors win that basketball game. But
they really struggled to score down the stretch once the Clippers locked in defensively, and that's where another guy to create an advantage would have been really helpful.
The same reasons that it's difficult to trade Siakam right now are the same reasons that the Raptors should not be re-signing him. And it's the same thing that we've been talking about for a long time, but now it's just even more obvious. Is Pascal Siakam's 29 years old. He doesn't fit the timeline anymore. And if you're talking about a guy who, if we're saying the whole, hey, just re-sign him, bring it back, keep kicking it down the line, I just think it's going to be more awkward and more difficult at some point for these guys to...
The relationship phrase more, the value of, and I hate talking about players like this, but like the value decreases like as he goes into his third, like it's not the same trade chip forever.
You hate talking about players this way? It's the best part about sports is talking about fake trades.
Oh, I just mean that like the specific like re-sign him with the idea of trading him later. Like
we gotta stop with this. Yeah. We got to stop with this whole re-sign with the idea of trading later because I read Matt Moore's piece yesterday. Right, I just talked to Jake Fisher. There is a growing belief that the Raptors are going to be less likely to trade Siakam, but that growing belief is based in it's Masai Ujiri. He doesn't like to compromise on trades, and he's more willing to just roll and say, I'll kick this down the line, I'll figure this out later. But here's how I feel. I don't think it's fair to Siakam, but Siakam at some point in his camp has to sit down and have a realistic conversation and go, you know what? No one's offering us the max contract or the near max contract, and there's no way to be playing ourselves into this. And this is kind of the fear I have when it comes to, and I don't want to overstate this fear. I don't think that Siakam's game is one where he's just going to be so ball dominant or he's going to start churning out Russell Westbrook performances trying to chase a max deal or convince a team that he's worth a max deal. I think it's already set in stone. I don't think there's anything he can do that's going to change the way teams feel about him because, again, he's a super athletic player that's going to be going into his 30s. I'm not sure any team wants to give him a max contract, not exactly seeing how he fits with their team or having a long runway with their team and given the parameters of who he has been as a player, right? So that's there. Masai wants players back for him, and other organizations don't seem to be willing to part with their 1A, high-end...
Keegan Murray, Jalen Johnson types.
Exactly. My God, there's no... Jalen Johnson.
Did you catch any of that game last night?
I was going to say something that was going to get me fired. Let's just say there's not a long list of things I wouldn't do to get Jalen Johnson on the Raptors in a Pascal Siakam trade. If that was ever on the table, anyway.
I've never heard that it was, but like that was the guy in the offseason when the conversations come up. I was like, oh, that'd
they
be
missed
nice.
it.
Yeah.
They missed the window.
If they ever had the window.
If they ever had if they
Keegan
did.
Murray, I think there was a window and it's gone now. Like, I'm not saying for the Raptors specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know that the Kings were as high on him until like he took maybe the biggest jump defensively in basketball this year and a jump as a shooter.
Here's the thing I would do. This is going to be so unpopular. I would do the Kings trade. I would take Herter. I would take Barnes' contract. I would take Davion Mitchell. And I would, as long as it comes with a bunch of draft picks, I was talking about this again with Fisher, where it's tough with draft picks, right? Because you don't know what they're going to end up being. You don't know how they're going to translate. You don't know what years they're going to be in. The Raptors don't care about this year's draft. That's why they made the Jakob Poeltl trade. They already looked at it and said, yeah, we're good. All right. Yeah, maybe we could end up as a team that picks in the lottery. We don't feel as though we're going to be missing too much here. If you can get picks in next year's draft or the following year's draft, just owning Sacramento Kings future first-round picks, I think is going to have some value given the track record and the history of that organization, despite having Siakam, despite having Sabonis, and despite having De'Aaron Fox, who I'm a big fan of. Just like that idea. Just like the idea of that. I don't think you're going to get materially better for it. I don't think it would be better to flip Siakam for DeJounte Murray. I don't. I think that makes your backcourt, again, a little complicated. All of a sudden you have your own Trae Young, DeJounte Murray thing with who you just brought in Quickley. But to me, I don't want to have the whose team is this thing anymore. I want to let Scotty Barnes flourish. I want this to officially be purely his basketball team. I want this to be Quickley, you can take a step. RJ Barrett, you're kind of the third guy. The new guys coming in, bring in a bunch of pieces, get a bunch of draft picks, and then try to accumulate assets so that you can be the new quote unquote Thunder that's sitting and waiting in the wings. You wait in the wings?
Yeah. You can wait wherever you want, but
Yeah,
that's typically where
you
people
wait in the wings.
Yeah.
And pounce when you see a player become available in a trade that you think will fit with those three guys or whoever else you deem to be a part of that future core, whether it's Gradey Dick, whether Herter ends up hitting with you, whether Davion Mitchell, who I think is actually it's still a decent asset to be grabbing as a player and a guy who can come in there.
Yeah, he's like old for his prospect level, experience level, but that guy can defend like crazy.
That's it. I like having a change of pace back, essentially, where you go, hey, bring this guy in, let him defend for a little while. He's still a competent basketball player. Like, you bring those three guys in, all of a sudden the Raptors are a very, very deep team. I think that a lot of those pieces fit around Scotty Barnes. Now you have a bunch of shooting around Scotty Barnes. Herter can play. And I think, again, devalued asset. I don't mind that trade as much as people did. When it looks like Raptors trade Harrison Barnes for Pascal Siakam, it looks horrific. Depending on the draft capital, I think that's going to be the best the Raptors could end up actually doing, and I kind of hope that's where it goes.
So here's my understanding, and this isn't from the mouth of the Raptors directly. This is from talking to people around the league and trying to piece together what they want to do. Is they are less worried about how many assets they get than they are what is the best asset we get in a trade. And that's why the Immanuel Quickley deal made sense to them, right? Like there's the Zach Lowe comment of he heard league sources, at least one league source call RJ a toxic asset.
Yeah.
Even if I don't believe that is not the sense I got canvassing the league. It was more of like, it's neutral. Like you're paying the freight on RJ, so he better be good, which obviously he has been, but like, that was fine because Quickley is the headline item in that. And I think that's why, at least for now, and this is the other thing with all of, and this was kind of Jake Fisher's point on your show yesterday, is like, it's January 11th. We got 4 weeks of posturing left. Why would you put your best offer on the table? Why would you, if you're the Raptors, say that's enough? Wait a little bit here, see if anyone gets desperate. If that Harrison Barnes, Kevin Herter, Davion Mitchell deal is on the table, guess what? Even if the Kings got frustrated in the trade talks, it'll be on the table February 8th.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with that. Now,
and I like that. By the way, I should say, to make this point clear, I don't think that the Raptors should rush the Siakam thing. I think that they should actually be using the time that they have and see how this thing materializes. The point I'm making is, if at the end of the day that's the best offer you have, then I would take that trade. And I'm sorry, I'm really not a Kuminga guy. I think the Warriors will probably re-engage those talks with Siakam or for Siakam now that Steph Curry has taken a public position of, we need to make a trade. You guys better do something. I'm Steph Curry. This is very out of character for me to be stumping publicly for something different.
It's not usually a squeaky wheel.
No. and Siakam to me represents the smoothest fit for the Golden State Warriors. He's a better idea than Mitchell for them, right?
So I'll say this with the Warriors frameworks. If it's Chris Paul's expiring contract that you're then going to buy out and he's going to go sign with someone else once he's healthy,
which I think you do.
That, like, you can just look at the prospects. If you're talking about a framework where you have to take on Andrew Wiggins' salary, I need so many more assets back. So, like, if you're talking about you think Kuminga would be enough if he's attached to Chris Paul, if you're attaching it to Andrew Wiggins instead of Chris Paul, I need Moses Moody too, and I probably need a pick. Like, Andrew Wiggins has a bigger contract than RJ Barrett remaining. He's older and significantly worse.
Here's the thing. I kind of feel like he'll probably, actually, I don't know. Yeah, he'll probably end up opting into his player option when he's 31. Maybe not. It depends on how things go, right?
Wiggins?
For Wiggins? Yeah.
He's picking that option. I mean, if it's
$30 million
anything like this, like, he'd have to have, at this point, to not pick that option up, he'd have to run back his championship season.
But that's it. Is beyond this season, he's got 3 more years on the books that it's going to be 26, 28, and $30 million guaranteed. That's a lot of money. If you're the Warriors, I think you're trying to offer that up. But you're also torn between two things, which is if you're going to be trading Moody and Kuminga and getting off of a bunch of bodies and you're trying to go for a championship run, I would think the Warriors would say, we actually want to keep Wiggins because he might end up having a playoff moment for us.
Yeah.
And that to us is more valuable than getting off the contract.
So then you split those prospects up into multiple deals, try to get a couple guys.
But to me, if you're doing the Chris Paul for Siakam thing, I'm just not interested in Kuminga. Moody's fine. He was high school teammates with Scotty Barnes.
Yeah,
that's a little bit of a plus, but I'm not overly concerned about that stuff. I don't care about the draft picks. To me, it's Podziemski, and they're not going to move him in Siakam. And so
they don't seem to like Moody as much as I do. But Moody, if we're talking headline item in the trade, that's not going to move you a ton. Moody and Kuminga are both they're the anti-Davion Mitchell, where they're both very, very young. They were the 2 youngest players in their draft class, I think. So as third-year guys, they're still really young. But yeah, I like Moody a lot. But as a headline item, I would understand why he doesn't move you.
To me, maybe this is stupid because it's just the unknown versus the known, but I'd rather have an unprotected first-round pick from the Kings in 26, than Kuminga.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is with all of these is going to be the protections, where it's like we kicked around some on the show yesterday.
If you're taking Harrison Barnes, Herter, and Davion Mitchell for Siakam, then I need an unprotected first-round pick.
Yeah, and I mean, it's an interesting one because, obviously that trade is one where it's the Rudy Gay trade logic, right? Where it's and I don't mean to overdo this just because it's the Kings again, but it is kind of funny that it's the Kings again, where you are turning one guy who, in Pascal's case, you really, really like and is the best player in the deal, no questions asked. But you're turning him into 3 guys who could be in your rotation next year. Now, Harrison Barnes, maybe you'd consider more of we're going to move him at some point.
No, he's gone. Yeah, he's
but
no fit.
I mean, he's still a decent player. So would your thinking with that one be that, you're ready to push for a playoff spot in a playoff series again as soon as next year? That's with Quickley, RJ, and Scotty Barnes in place, you can do that, right?
Yes, and the thing is, I've been on record with this for a long time. What I really want to see is Scotty surrounded by more shooting. Scotty Barnes first of all, he looks bigger and stronger since they've made this trade. Genuinely.
Also, can I just say, sorry, I've gotten a lot of questions. I'm actually writing about this right when we're done. Scotty only took 10 field goal attempts last night. His usage rate has been down. All the other numbers that involve passing and how much you're touching the ball and stuff like that, they all say he's still very, very involved still.
Yeah.
To me, this looks like a guy who is very, very good, knows he can get his, and is making sure that RJ and Quickley are finding their spots. And I just think this is his decrease in usage over these couple games is not a fit issue. It's a good teammate who likes passing issue, and he can turn the fourth quarter of the Lakers game. He just turned the shooting volume back up because they needed it. I think that this is fine.
Kevin Herter is only 25 years old. And last year, he was a 15-point per game guy that all Raptors fans went, man, it sure would have been nice to be able to go get that guy. He was 40% from 3.
Yeah.
His entire career, including this season, he's a 38% three-point shooter.
I don't know what has happened to his shot this year.
But he's 33% this season. I would believe that thing is going to bounce back. That's just me. Based on the track record of this player, I think Herter is going to bounce back into one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA.
He also averaged almost 4 assists a game one year. He can be a secondary. I really do think this is. And look, he was the number 19 pick, and Gradey was the number 13 pick. Whatever. It's kind of like the best case scenario for Gradey Dick's development, right? You become a 15, 16 point a game guy who hits a lot of threes and could be a secondary passer.
I just like the idea of putting more shooting around Barnes, having a team that all of a sudden is going to be able to floor quickly. I don't know if RJ Barrett's going to shoot 50% from three or 60%. What has he been since he came to the Raptors? Has he missed a three?
RJ?
Yeah.
56.
Yeah. It's like, I don't think he's missed a three. I don't think he's going to continue at this rate, but I want more shooting around Scotty. And I think that that's going to be the ultimate formula for this team. Make it so that he can get to his spots with more ease. Turn him into more of a playmaker. Make him mini Giannis / LeBron, okay? That if you want him to actually be the face of the league someday, Darko, that's going to be one of the paths in order to get there. I don't hate it. I don't hate that value for Siakam. But to me, again, it's more about avoiding the disaster of Siakam walking for nothing, which I don't think it's probable, but I'm not ruling it out.
I didn't think it was probable for Fred either, because at the time it didn't look like the Rockets were going to. There was the James Harden question mark. There was the would he even go to a team that's so far away? Like, the winds shift quickly, and you don't really want to leave yourself exposed like that. Even if the bird rights to sign and trade as a worst case scenario is usually something, it's not always. And I don't know that you could do that twice in a row, even if you're pretty happy with how things look on court right now.
That's it. I think that the risk is too great. I would rather take genuine, real assets from a team like the Kings than go into the offseason and be in a disagreement with Pascal Siakam over what his worth is, what his role is going to be. That's the thing, man. If you're not going to be offering him the max, which he clearly wants, right? If he's going to feel slighted by the Raptors on the term and the money and the role, who's to say that he's not going to eventually look at it and say, you know what? There are other teams out there that do want me. They're going to pay me similar money. Maybe the tax situation is a little bit better. Maybe the fit is a little bit better. Maybe they're a little closer to winning. Maybe I'll be appreciated more. I'm not. It's too much risk for me. Anyway, other negative thing. Shouldn't I miss the center you paid $20 million for and a first-round pick for and not feel like, boy, the reclamation project's big, that wears the T-shirt to the pool is doing a pretty decent job of, and there were, I don't want to say these is good, because there were moments yesterday where it's like, it's clear his touch around the rim is nowhere near.
I mean, look, he played 18 minutes, which is more than a G League call-up should be playing, and they won his minutes. Like, he didn't sink them, which if you were called up from the G League playing unexpected rotation minutes, you don't sink the minutes is like what you're supposed to do. And like, I thought in the Kings game, he was really good. I thought, the last two nights he's been fine. But yeah, you should notice the Pirtle absence more. And I know that in the games that he's played since the trade, he looks like he makes more sense, right? Like, he has more point guards working pick and roll with him and finding him on pocket passes and stuff like that. And the field goal percentage all year has been really high, even though, there's the pass fumbling in the paint and stuff like that.
Sure.
But like, I can't help every time the Pirtle conversation comes up, think back to our conversations after the trade last year, which was, makes on-court sense. Doesn't make sense to give up a first and a couple seconds for it. And then my piece after the re-upping of him in the offseason, which was like, okay, well, his only pick and roll point guard left in Fred. You already gave up these assets, and you paid like was he getting 4 years, $79 million, $78 million from anyone else? I don't really know. So, I mean, it's unfair to him. Like, it's happened. It's a sunk cost at this point. But it is like, even if he fits well, I'm just not going to agree with how you've got here.
That's it. It's very clear to me at this point with him that they lost that trade badly, and they also lost the signing badly. He's not a $20 million center. And I don't care how many people tell me he's a top 10 center or whatever the hell. He's not.
He's probably in the 20 to 30 range, which means if he's starting, you're probably fine with that. But like,
if you can replicate him with Thad Young and DeJounte Porter, I'm sorry, you didn't do very well.
Yeah, and
in the trade.
He's better than those guys. But
sure,
but
how much?
This is the thing: is like, you look around the league at the center market, and it's not. It shouldn't have cost you that. And I feel bad because I mention it all the time, and it's not Jakob's fault he got the money. Yeah. But it's hard. It's a hard one to reconcile with, and it's going to stand out as like the move where like you didn't love the path and some of the decisions up to that point, and you like everything since. Like, you like the OG trade, if they do a Siakam trade that you like and things like that, but it's going to be the one like that's just kind of stuck there because you don't have that first, and it is a pretty big contract.
Before you go, You're the G League guy. You're always going on about the G League. And I always see tweets about the G League from you. And I go, I have to restrain myself from replying to all of them and going with the same thing. Who cares?
I mean, you say that, and then like Jonte Porter gives you 18 minutes and is like suddenly a guy.
I actually got to tell you, this one that's a real world example because you were doing a lot of Porter stuff.
Well, I had a big feature coming on him, so
I know, but that's it. You were doing a lot of Porter stuff, and I went, enough's enough. Enough's enough with this, okay? Enough's enough. And now he's really contributing. But the Gradey Dick thing, he misses yesterday's game because of an elbow contusion or something?
Forearm contusion. Yeah, he was a very late scratch. Like he warmed up and got ready for the game and everything.
What are you hearing on this? Because you look at the G League numbers, and I know you're aware of this, but if you're a Raptors fan, since he's been in the G League, the 3-point numbers have not improved.
No, not great. He shot well last game, but generally he has not shot well. Has not shot well.
This Raptors team last night was playing Garrett Temple. And I know they were on the road and it was extenuating circumstances and all this different stuff, but this is pre the Sacramento Kings trade that I'm talking about, where they're bringing in 3 depth players.
He didn't play in that Pistons game.
Yeah.
And he was there with them.
So what is happening here?
So there are a few things. Obviously, he just was not nearly like they talked about him on draft night, like he was going to come in and be a rotation guy day one. Like if anyone retcons this of like he was always a long-term prospect, no, he wasn't. They thought he was going to be in the rotation, at least on fringes of the rotation.
I think part of the reason that they drafted him was that they were like, okay, we actually have a bona fide shooter that's going to be on the roster. We know we're going to have an NBA skill set there.
With Will and Alex for his G League games this year at 9.5 before the season. He's already at 10 halfway through the season. So this wasn't the plan. Obviously, the shot is not dropping. What happened to him at the NBA level, and he says it's not confidence related. I don't know how it couldn't be confidence related. It's the first time since you were like 8 years old that your shot went away for an extended stretch. But starting to rush against NBA length and athleticism on closeouts, starting to hesitate and a pump fake into a drive that you travel on because you're rushing the attack of the closeout, things like that. What the Raptors have determined is that he needed a little bit of a reset in terms of, we got to get you up to an NBA level of strength and conditioning. And I don't mean that like he came in out of shape or anything like that, but like he's wiry, he's not very strong yet. That impacts your ability to fight to get open off of off-ball screens, to keep a strong base as you come around and catch the ball and stuff like that. It's not anything anyone wants to hear because he's not performing.
They should tell him that there's a huge market for TikTok workouts.
Yeah. So that is kind of what they're trying to get back to here. Let's get him back to a level where physically he can hang. I will say the numbers aren't great. Last game he was really good. And he had another game coming out of the new year where
all I see is clips, right? I'm not watching these. And clips, you don't learn anything because all they do is selectively choose. Oh, here's Grady dribbling down the baseline. He knocks one down. I'm like, all right.
It's the opposite version of just looking at the 3-point percentage, right? Where like, obviously that's going to tell you the worst thing. The highlight's going to tell you the best thing. The truth is somewhere in between. He's not a good defender. He's not going to be a good defender. Right now, the 3 obviously has to drop for him to sniff the NBA. He's at least doing some things better and it's trending in the right direction, but I would not be comfortable with him in an NBA rotation right now. So it's moving there, but it's not. I keep coming back to, I'm wish casting this, but Corey Kispert from the Wizards was really bad as a rookie shooter as well, coming from a similar spot where like what was he? He was just outside the lottery, shot really poorly as a rookie, and eventually found his way to an
athletic white guy that they knew was going to just be a shooter in the NBA. But same comparison. I'm hoping he can be Kyle Korver.
Yeah. Now he shot 35% as a rookie, not like 28% in the G League, but that's where. Look, it's not there yet. This has been a disappointment. It's trending in the right direction, but that's not going to make anyone feel good about a lottery pick they expect to be in the rotation day one.
Well, I'll tell you this too, is the whole we want to get him up to NBA shape and NBA this and NBA.
The messaging wasn't great, but
also that is, to me, I'm sorry, it's cover for his game is tough because
Yeah.
he's in good enough shape to shoot a basketball. I'm sorry. And
It's just a weird thing where the solution with every other player has been let's get him in the G League, let's play him as many minutes as possible, let's get him the reps. This is the first time I can ever remember the Raptors doing something like this. Like Bruno was in there playing 35 minutes every game, no matter how bad he was.
Well, I was going to say, who do you think is in better NBA shape right now? Porter or with his no knee ligaments or Gradey Dick? Come on. And one guy just came from the G League and he's playing minutes, right?
Yeah.
So to me, this is the longer he's in the G League, the more concerned I get. The fact that they don't want to trust him to come up here and just say, hey, whatever. Because now it's sort of the perfect spot. Now it's, hey, come in off the bench and play a little bit of ball, knock down an open shot. That's it. No pressure.
Gary Trent or RJ or Dennis Schroeder, whoever need to miss a game when they're back off the road. Javon Freeman Liberty's getting that call, not Gradey Dick.
Oof.
He's the next guy up. I don't think Grady's close to NBA minutes right now. And he's been better and it's trending in the right direction, but I don't think he gives you solid NBA minutes right now.
It's a really overlooked story because of everything that's been going on with the Raptors, but it's hard. It's every once in a while you're reminded and you go, right, the lottery pick.
Look, I've always tweeted the G League results and injury news and stuff like that out, but yeah, there's a reason that they get more attention right now than they normally would because it's bizarre.
It's just extremely difficult, especially when there's 4 guys that went pretty quickly behind him that are all having massive impact. They also just played
Kobe Buffkin twice in a row, and Buffkin just destroyed them.
That's it. There's too many guys that went right after Gradey Dick who look awesome, and Gradey Dick is shooting sub 30% in the G League and not the next call up for the Raptors. A team that, again, played Garrett Temple yesterday.
And was the worst three-point shooting team in the league for a while.
Yeah. I'm concerned. This is far beyond just, don't worry, he's young to me. I'm sorry. It's bad.
I think, honestly, at this point, it's whatever you do with Gradey Dick this year is about getting him in a better spot for next year. He's going to play NBA minutes again this year because it's a long season and the G League season ends before the NBA season does. And if they're not, in the mix for a playoff spot or something like that, he's going to get another chance. But my eyes are on next year at this point. I don't see him being a positive contributor this season.
Right.
And if he does, awesome. I'll happily eat that. It'll mean the threes are dropping.